Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Network. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today's guest is Mary Clark, who is the lifestyle and leadership coach for Discover Better You. Thank you for joining me, Mary.
Oh, Chad, I am more than welcome to be here. I am looking forward to this conversation. And you and I have been talking about this long enough. It's like, it's finally here, the moment.
It is. We're finally here, and we're here to talk about lifestyle and leadership coaching. And you and I have known each other for, I don't even know how long now. It seems like forever. But one thing that you're doing that's amazing is you're working with public agencies and helping their teams develop and grow. And one thing I'm really curious about is how did you even get into coaching and leadership coaching?
Oh, great question. Thank you. So I stumbled upon coaching many moons ago when I was working in corporate, and we would have coaches come in when I was, a liaison for leadership. And I was always impressed with just the way that they would lay out different frameworks that would be supportive either to the teams or to the leaders or just to the overall mindset of just the health of the organization itself.
Mm-hmm.
We always know that those things sound good when someone is presenting them or offering them.
Yeah.
In practice is a whole other thing. But I was always impressed by, just the deliverables or again, the framework that was being offered. And then when I would try and work with, my team or leaders to try and implement those things, again, it sounded much better in theory than it did in practice.
Right.
So I kind of took it upon myself to start learning about, what were some of the different, dynamics, aspects of the coaching space that could be implemented into the team. And I would, put it into this, what I thought was a very neat way that would be sellable to the leaders and say, we really need to do this for the team. It just doesn't need to be something that's presented on. It's something that needs to be implemented and become a part of the conversation or the culture itself. Didn't always land, but I was always empowered by all of the different tools that were being offered. So eventually, after 25 plus years of working in corporate, I was like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah.
And get on the other side of it. So once I decided to step away from corporate, I stepped directly into leadership coaching because that was primarily my background. I worked with leaders, been a liaison for leaders, supported leaders, stood as a sounding board, stood in the spaces where leaders were, serving, myself included. Yeah. And I saw the disconnect. So that's how I got into it.
Well, that's amazing. Look, I think everyone needs a coach. Someone looking at those blind spots and outside. 100%. I am with you on this one. Obviously, why we're doing a podcast. So you didn't directly just jump into leadership coaching. Were you a coach before? I just want to kind of understand. Did you dabble in coaching like before?
I did.
Okay.
I dabbled in it just a little bit, but only from the perspective of learning about it and working with a coach. Because I think, like you said, to your point, once you do start understanding that your blind spots are not easily known to you, or not easily known for you to understand how to navigate them or how to support yourself in that space, let alone being able to understand what you don't see about your own behaviors, your own mindset. So I started working with a coach and I was really shifted and blown away.
Wow.
So that's when I fully stepped into it and decided not only is this for me, this is everything that I've been wanting to do. So I embraced it and haven't looked back since. That was over 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's, 10 years, a decade in the coaching business. That's awesome.
Yes.
So you've been working on some amazing things with like I said earlier, a public agency in their leadership program. And what kind of program is it? What have you put in place that's made a difference? Can you talk about like how? Okay, let's go back. When you started working with your first company, let's say that, what was that like? Like, what was some of the challenges you've had to face when you started working with leadership?
Yeah. Again, great question. Usually, when leadership or organizations or companies are bringing in a coach, it's usually the person at the very top who's bringing in a coach
Okay.
to work with either their managers, their directors, or their supervisors. And it's usually not something that the leaders themselves are selecting. So
Okay.
it's usually a bit of a shock. Like, wait a minute, why do I need a coach? And I'm doing everything exactly the way I'm supposed to be doing. So why do I need a coach?
Yeah.
Um, but most entry level managers, most entry level members of leadership, they're often not aware of their own blind spots to their
Hmm.
own behaviors that they're bringing in, and it can be quite a shift from going from getting a degree in college and knowing how to speak the language of leadership and knowing how to explain what it means to lead a team. But it's a whole other beast to actually effectively lead a team.
Yeah.
So working with my first organization was really very much similar to that. It was working with people who were resistant
Mm.
to growth. I mean, like, I don't think if you ask almost anybody, like, hey, do you feel like you have a growth mindset? They would be like, absolutely, I have a growth mindset.
Yeah.
It's when they get challenged around their perceptions, around their beliefs, and
Yeah.
around their habits and patterns is when they say, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to push back on that. Or, you know what, I hadn't looked at it like that, or I hold a different perspective about that. And that's when the growth or the awareness can begin. But
Yeah.
working with my first company, and I'll tell you, it's no different today. You go into an organization, you go in to work with a team of leaders. It is the same thing. It's I don't know. Can I trust you? What do you want to know about me? It's being challenged around questions. That's what I've learned. Most people are not used to being questioned. Like even in this space with you and
Right.
you have to have a level of comfort with just being questioned and examining your psyche, your mental, your emotional, your physical. And most people are not used to that.
Yeah.
So it can pose a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get stuck in our habits. We get stuck in our routines. We get stuck in the ways we're doing things every day. And you drop in Mary, and Mary's like, "Hey, well, let's talk about it." And you use this phrase all the time, and I use it
I
now
do.
also because
I
we sit
do.
around at dinner and we talk about,
I
let's talk about it.
do. Let's talk
So
about it.
that's tough. Yeah, I mean, now thinking about what a leader would go through if they didn't have a coach before, and you walk in the door, you're like, "Hey, that's I got some questions for you." That's going to be
Right.
intimidating, 100%.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Chad, and you know better than anybody, it's not like you just drop a coach in. If you drop me specifically in, because you know how I am about asking questions. And I mean, I kind of get in there and,
Yeah.
and I'm examining. It's like you think you're answering a question, and I turn that answer into a question. And then people
Oh
are
yeah.
like, wow, hadn't seen that coming, or hadn't thought about it like that. And it really does, speak to the service that I'm attempting to do for that person, that individual, that organization, that company, to
Yeah.
examine those spaces intricately, examine them at their deepest level so that we can get the most out of
Yeah.
that person for the organization. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're 100%. I'm only keep laughing because I know you long enough to know the questions that we get through. I can only imagine. So now you've worked with a bunch of companies, I assume, and now I know you're working in. This is the infrastructure network. We work with public works departments and infrastructure companies that do business with government entities and things like that. So it one thing in this industry, and I know you and I've kind of talked about it at dinner and stuff, but it's a very archaic uh, way of doing things here. It's very traditional. It's very relationship based. It's very habit setting. Like we're not gonna go out of anything out of the norm, right? So, in your experience, when you started working with your first public agency and getting into that, working in the public agency, what programs have you put in place? So like what did you didn't really start with like here's a program and this is what we're going to do. How did you slowly work your way into getting accepted into the public agency, I guess I should say?
Oh, that's a very interesting story. So, one of my first contracts with, the public side of things was um, my husband was doing business with someone, and through that connection, that individual learned that I was a coach and asked me because he had worked with a coach in the past. And he was like, you know what, coach me. And again, I'll just say, if you don't, if you don't know me and know that I definitely have a style, I definitely have an
Oh
approach,
yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
definitely intentional about what I do. So can you imagine, Chad, when someone says, coach me, I'm like, and
Oh yeah.
I did try to warn her. I said, you don't want me to do this here. Trust me. You don't want, so no, I want you to do it right here. I want you to coach me. And I don't know, within 15 minutes, they were like, you know what? I need a break. I need to take a break. I need to
Right.
take a breather for a minute. And then I think there was a belief that I'm going to reset and come back to this, and I'll be better at it. Or I'll be able to answer questions correctly.
Right.
Not knowing that there is no correct answer. There's no way to answer correctly. But they came back to the table, kudos to them for doing that.
Yeah.
5 minutes later, they were like, yeah, okay. Number one, you're hired.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah.
Right. Number one, you're hired. Number two, I want you to work with my team.
Yeah.
And that connection and contract led to another connection and contract, which led to another connection and contract.
Yeah.
And here we are, but
That's
before then,
awesome.
I was primarily coaching, again, leaders, companies, organizations that were on the private sector.
Yeah.
But I love both, though. It really isn't any different. If you're peopling, you're people, and people
Good point.
own people. So
It's so true. Right.
yeah,
We talk about culture in businesses, and yeah, same thing in public sector organizations. Culture is a huge thing. And the only thing that I can see different is public sector is more of a place where once you're in, you're in. And that's always been the mindset. You're never getting out or fired or removed, and you're stuck there. Private sector is different. It's a right to work, whatever. You can get fired, you can get changed, someone will replace you, blah, blah, blah. It's a little different on the hiring side of things. Where do you think a lot of, I guess, companies in general kind of go wrong with their culture? Is it just because of the bad leadership, or is it just people in general that you kind of hinted at a little bit ago? Like, it's
yeah,
always the people, because you'll have a bad apple. How do you get rid of the bad apple? What if that bad apple is really good at something and they make a lot of
yeah,
money for the company? Like, how's that?
yeah. Absolutely. Great question. I don't think we have bad apples, and I don't think people are
Okay.
intentionally or just innately bad. I
Okay.
think what we have is a culture of just community, of belief systems, of approach where we're just afraid to have courageous conversations.
Hmm.
And really a lack of accountability at the leadership all the way down through to the last person in the organization.
Yeah.
There's a real disconnect within that space, which really does hinders and hampers how we see each other.
Yeah.
There's this hierarchical belief of power over between leadership and their teams. And what you often find is that you're not doing anything alone. You're accomplishing a lot of things collectively. So
Right.
now, how do you just expand your sphere of influence? And how do you get people engaged to the degree that they want to follow your leadership? And vice versa. How do you get people engaged enough to where they want to, be led,
Right.
or they're open enough to see their own opportunities? Because I can tell you this, in my many years of coaching, I have yet to run into a person who has a lot of self-awareness to the degree that they're able to self-examine and hold themselves accountable.
Yeah.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Um, or that they have enough emotional intelligence that they're practiced in to where they can hold themselves accountable. Again, not often happening. And so it becomes a culture of dysfunction based around people who just don't have those soft skills, critical thinking skills, emotional intelligence skills, accountability skills,
Yeah.
all the things that anybody would list on their resume, Chad. They
Right.
would list on it. Are you an effective communicator? Oh my gosh, I'm an effective communicator. Like, do you have interpersonal? Oh, my interpersonal skills are off the chain. Like, of course. Do you work well cross functionally at all levels? I work amazingly at all levels. I mean, and it's a sales tactic. People can usually pull that off.
Right.
In practice, something totally different. Oh, well, you meet a challenge. Now they got a story to tell if they meet a challenge. Well, let me tell you what Sheila did, or let me tell you what Joan did, or let me tell you what Bob did.
Yeah.
Now it's the story versus here's a great opportunity for me to practice the skill set that I said I had, either on my resume or on my LinkedIn or
Mm,
wherever I put my list of credentials. Now it's time to put those into practice, and it doesn't happen
right.
because people are more reactionary than they are responsive to things. So
Ooh,
I would say where things often go, I won't even call it wrong, but where they often become unhealthy in the work
yeah.
environment is around self accountability and just a culture of having courageous conversations to
Yeah.
level set on those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because if you're, well, first of all, if you're using your resume as a way to inflate your skill set, obviously you're going to get hired, and they're going to look
yes,
at you and they're going to be like, wait, what did we just do? That's like a
exactly.
huge mistake for them. They weren't looking for you because you inflated your resume, and now we don't even know who we're going to hire. Like, what do you do well now once you're in the company, right? So you
Exactly.
got to put them in the right place and right seat on the bus or whatever you want to call
Yeah,
it. And then, it becomes a nightmare for the company when you do those type
it
of things. And
does.
then you're
The
talking,
talent pool too, like,
yeah,
to your point, Chad, the talent pool can be very different on the public spectrum versus the private spectrum.
mm,
But you're still looking for talent, right? Solid
yeah,
talent that's going to be a good fit for the role, for the organization, for the team, for what you're trying to accomplish.
right,
But again, that can look very different when you're examining the talent versus, well, wait a minute, I want to make sure that they're exceptional or solid communicators, at
right,
least to the degree that they're effective. I want to make sure that their emotional intelligence is at least meeting the bar or the bare minimal standards so that, again, if a challenge is put in front of you, you know how to manage that and you know
right,
how to hold yourself accountable so it's not becoming an issue or creating a toxic environment.
right,
So, of course, leaders, organizations are looking for great talent, but that great talent being coupled with having those competencies of just those basic skill sets that everybody says they have, and it's not until you're in the situation and you're working that your leader or the organization found out, oh, no, 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 not only do you not have this talent or skill, you're actually more of into victimhood or
right,
blaming or
right.
pointing the finger or deflecting.
Oh,
So there's
that's the
tons
worst.
of
Yeah,
yes,
that's the worst situation to be in. And you think about hiring as in general right now with the labor shortage, especially in infrastructure, public sector, private sector, everyone's dealing with labor shortages. But you're so desperate as a company to bring somebody in, you could
yes.
just literally put yourself out of business with bringing the wrong person in by
Yes.
those things we were just talking about.
Yes. I
Yeah,
mean, I've seen it happen to the degree of, not anybody going out of business, but I've definitely seen
yeah,
an organization, a department be crippled by unhealthy behaviors.
yeah,
And once, I mean, you can have 10 solid people who are just quiet, do their jobs, come to work, do what they're asked to do, they're task oriented. And you can have out of that 10 people, one person who is just infecting it with a lot of, just unhealthy habits.
yeah,
And that can become the overarching or the loudest thing that's being felt or heard within that department. And it can be destructive. So you
big
don't
time.
want to discount, the hiring practice or like you said, just looking for quality people to bring in and just, just kind of taking that talent and saying, and there's a lot of assumption, right?
Yeah,
Like it's easy to assume that if they've worked for this person, if they worked for that person, if they worked in this role, then they must be amazing at all of their soft skills,
yeah,
or they must be amazing at emotional intelligence.
yeah.
That's not always the case.
I think the hiring's one part of it, but then internally when you get brought into a business that's already established and there's characteristics already built, personalities are built, and the
Yeah.
culture is a certain way, and you walk into it, and your goal is to basically get everybody on the same page, right, and symbiotic
Yeah.
together, that kind of stuff. How
Synergy.
synergy is
Right.
huge in relationships, right? So how do you get these different personalities together and start becoming synergetic together, like I mean, you gotta get a lot of resistance, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but I mean, that's gonna be hard.
Yeah, it's really just aligning with and allying them and creating partnership.
Okay.
I let them know that, hey, I'm here to interrupt your comfort level, but I'm not here to interrupt the way you do your work. I'm just here to give you some tools and empower you with a different, maybe, perspective and a way to use those tools that I'm going to empower you with in a way that's going to serve you and the greater good of your organization and the greater good of you, really,
Yeah.
because these tools are transcend. They transcend from your work to your home to your life,
Big time life.
um,
Yeah.
big time. So I don't, I mean, it's literally one person at a time,
Yeah.
one group at a time, because usually what ends up happening is when the leader starts growing, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I need this for my team."
Yeah.
And then, I start working with the team and they're like, "You know what? There are some people that I can identify who needs one-on-one time.
Yeah.
They need a little bit more one-on-one space." And I would just say, it's usually one person, one team, one organization, one leader at a time.
Yeah.
But it's getting in there and letting them know that these tools are tried and true,
Yeah.
is they're trustworthy. And then once that is kind of part of their flow, they don't want to let it go. They don't
Yeah.
want to go back to dysfunction.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I think, what it sounds like, and I'm just repeating with this, is starting at the top of the leader, right?
definitely.
CEO, whoever's at the top, working our way down and creating this new way of thinking, and to be able to open up communication
Yes.
is what, these companies, when they hire a coach, what should happen, right? You start at the top, work your way down, you develop this culture where everyone's openly talking, because
Yeah.
right now, if they don't have coaches, typically there's somebody that at a lower level that isn't speaking up, isn't talking, isn't saying the things that are on their mind to make things better, or they get crushed, right? They get shut down by the leadership of, that's not going to work, doesn't make sense, you're an idiot, whatever. That's terrible culture, right? Terrible
Yeah.
leadership as well.
Yeah.
But those kind of things plague businesses, as we we kind of talked about. So what
Yeah.
are some of the ways, did you want to elaborate on that a little bit
Yeah,
more?
no, I was
Go ahead.
just gonna
Go ahead.
say that, I was gonna, this kind of segues into the 360 because
Yeah, that's
that
what I was gonna go.
really serves as a really great tool to help teams, organizations, especially leaders, um, see, from,
Yeah,
like an anonymous space, how they're affecting their team, how they're influencing their team, and the effectiveness of their leadership competencies.
yeah,
Um, but even in that, Chad, you know this firsthand, and most of us do. We bring our passion. We bring what we really love. I mean, sitting right here between you and I, we can say, "Oh my God, I really love doing X, fill in the blank." And
right.
we can get really active, hyped, and excited about it and create a business just from our passions or things that we love to do.
Right.
It's when you start to work with other people, is when you find out that you lack in people skills.
There you go.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's no different within organizations or companies. It's like, everybody is coming with a skill set, with something that they're bringing to the table, a reason, a talent that they were hired for, and they do really well at doing their jobs
Yeah.
sometimes. But where they are challenged is when, there's this perception that you're doing something wrong, or that you're needing to, there needs to be a conversation about maybe your approach, or the way that you're communicating, or the way that you're expressing yourself, or just your way of just being in an environment where you're having to collaborate with other people.
Hmm.
So the 360 assessment really serves, and I also have an individual assessment that I use when I'm usually working with a leader, but I usually do a 360 so that the resistance is kind of like eating a whole big piece of humble pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, because you can walk around thinking like, "Oh yeah, I'm an effective leader," and you may very well be. Or you can think, "You know what? I don't have that many blind spots. I'm pretty honest with myself. I know my areas of opportunity." And you very well may know. You don't always know how those behaviors are being experienced.
Right.
And that's what happens with the 360, because you get anywhere from sometimes 10 to 20 to 100 to 200 people giving you feedback on how they're experiencing all of these different categories.
Wow.
And it serves as a deep dive insight of your leadership competencies.
Yeah.
And that's on the one spectrum. So usually that kind of takes down the resistance a little bit. And I got a workable partner at that point. I got someone who's at least willing to say, well, I want to see the results. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about the results. And then the individual assessment does something very similar, and they're both energy leadership assessments, which simply means that it's measuring you at the leadership level based on how you show up when you're under stress and when your day is going exactly how you expect it to go. And you can answer that question for yourself, Chad. Like, how often does your day go exactly how you expect it to go? Exactly. At some point, you're going to meet stress, right? So, in the spaces where you're meeting stress, all we're ever examining is how does Chad show up when you're under stress? And then, and if we understand how you show up when you're under stress, then we can examine how do you want to show up and put you at choice so that you can examine your behaviors, your thoughts, the way that you're expressing yourself. And then you get to choose, like, I want to do this differently when stress shows up.
Yeah.
And that's usually manageable. But if you're not even aware of how you're showing up when you meet stress, or you're just thinking like it's just part of what I do, or it's just part of how I act, then it doesn't seem like there's much to change.
Yeah. I catch myself with the kids, our kids. I'm like, I try and keep the same, you know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard to keep because it's just,
it can be challenging,
like
but I
parent,
mean, the opportunity is really isn't like you're not pursuing perfection. You're pursuing a really fit way to function. So you think about going to the gym. You're not well, some people are pursuing perfection, and that's okay when you go to the gym. But you're really wanting to function well in your body. You want to be healthy. You want to, nurture the spaces within your body to where you're keeping your fit. You're keeping your either weight or just, your ability to just run a mile without being out of breath, right? You're pouring into yourself from a fitness perspective.
Right.
It's no different at the level of just holding yourself accountable to the same measure of how do I want to pour into myself and function optimally in my work environments, or when I meet my work, or with my family, or with my kids. How do I want to pour into that space and function well doing so? Yeah. So it's the same opportunity.
Yeah, you got to kind of turn the switch on. You walk into each building, so to speak. You got to turn the switch on. All right, well, I'm going to work. Turn the switch on.
Awareness is huge. Awareness is huge. It's nothing like waiting for someone else to point out that, there's this huge, sore on your shoulder. And every time somebody touches you, you're like, oh my God, that hurts. Instead of you saying, oh, well, it hurts because I got a sore there. Yeah. If you don't know that you have a sore there and someone else has to point it out to you, and it's going to hurt a little bit more because you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know I had a sore there. And you touching it really hurts.
Right.
So empower yourself. And that's what the 360 does. That's what the leadership assessment does. It helps you to understand what you may not see in the blind spots.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Let's go into the 360 program, how it works.
Yes.
A little bit more in depth, because when you and I talked about it previously, it's intriguing. So let me say how I think it works, and then you're going to correct me, okay? Because I know you're going to correct me. All right. So from what I understand is a leader would come in, take a 360 assessment, and I've done this. Actually, I've done this. That's right. I have done. It was very interesting results. So we'll fill out the questions, or I guess it's a set of questions, right? That I did. I filled them all out, and then I sent it in, and it kind of got analyzed. And then you came back to me with like a list of results, I should say.
Yes.
Like, here's my what was it, like good and bad? It was like kind of like a good and bad, right? It was
stress, and so it's just assesses you when you're under stress, how you respond.
Yeah.
And then when you're not under stress and how you respond. So definitely not good and bad, but it just tells you what your areas of opportunity are, where you really thrive in your energy. So I recall your assessment, and you did the individual one, you didn't do the 360 one, but I specifically
Right.
remember saying, who's surprised that you're a visionary? Who's
Oh, yeah.
surprised? Nobody.
It was
Who's
spot on.
surprised that you are absolutely thrilled by opportunities? Like you
Right.
see them everywhere. But when you hit stress factors, it just helps us understand what spaces do you drop into.
Oh,
Now,
that's right.
I
Now I
know you
remember
well
now.
enough to
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah, I remember now. Oh, yep, I remember. Yep.
I know you well enough to know that the spaces that you drop into is like when you don't see opportunity, when you don't see where you can create solutions, or where you
Right.
can't, really like reach for or pulling yourself out of a space. So then we're falling into that space where it's just like it becomes challenging. And,
Yeah.
like there's a little bit of frustration that kind of really resonates there. There's a really deep dive into the, I'm just in this cycle of I want to get out of here. I want to do this. I want to do, and it's really being stuck in that, judging yourself, being
Oh,
hard
yeah.
on yourself. And that can create a lot of blocks around your creative energy.
Right.
So that's what I remember, most about yours. But the 360 itself, you bring in, let's say you with your company, right?
Yep.
You know a ton of people, Chad,
Yep.
a ton of people.
Right.
Well, let's say if you said, you know what, I feel like I keep getting tripped up. I feel like,
Mhm.
I should be getting more out of the spaces. I wonder, how am I being experienced when I go into these spaces with these people? Because people who really like you, people who love you are going to say, oh no, Chad, you're doing a great job. You do really fantastic work. You know what? When I see you go in, I'm always like, wow, he's doing great.
Yeah.
That's nice, right? That's nice to get that
Sounds
feedback.
nice. Yeah, sure.
But now let's take that feedback and put it on the spectrum of all the people that you connect with within a week, 2 weeks, a month. And,
Yeah.
and let's say that's 50 people. Now imagine those 50 people say, what is your experience of Chad and how he adapts to change? What is your experience of Chad and how he meets conflict? What is your experience of Chad and how he maybe, put accountability systems in place where in the way that you work with him? And we take those same 50 people and
Yeah.
we ask them to assess you on, I think it's 36 queries
Wow.
in those types of categories. And those 50 people are going to give you feedback and they're going to rate you on this scale. And that's going to give you a totality. So go through your mind right now, Chad, and envision the 50 people that you would want to assess you in the way that they experience you at the business level on your business acumen, right?
Yeah.
So look at that smile. You're already like, oh, wait. And
I
you can throw whoever in there. Like you can range the categories. Most people are rated by their managers and or directors. They're rated by, their direct reports.
yeah.
They're rated by their peers. And then there's a self rating. But you can also customize it. You can have vendors that rate you. You can have stakeholders that rate you. You can have customers that rate you.
Wow.
And they're all giving you this category within that rating system of ranging from all these 36 different queries that they're going to
Mhm.
respond to give you feedback as to how they experience you, your business, or your corporation.
That's
So
valuable. That's super.
it,
I mean, that's valuable to
it's
any leader.
invaluable. It is
Invaluable. You're
absolutely
right.
hands down, Chad. It
It's
is
amazing.
hands down. Every time the leader gets to feel, it's literally like chomping at the bits with each leader. Like there's either this, I could tell like there's this fear of like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I have no idea. And then some are like, I
Right.
cannot wait to get this feedback because I want to improve. I want to get
Improve.
better.
Right.
And
Hmm.
and and it's again, in these categories, you could easily have 3 to 100 people rating you. It depends on how many people you send it out to.
Yeah.
But when you get the feedback, it becomes just a plethora of just ever giving insights as to, maybe the ways that you want to shape and just kind of support your business.
Yeah.
Because if you find that your customers feel like, you know what, there's really an area of opportunity with my communication with them,
Yeah.
you're going to want to know that. But if
Right.
they're uncomfortable giving you that information face to face, then a 360 may be very serving. The reason it works well in organizations is because one, leaders rarely receive feedback unless it's feedback that they can just kind of like, yeah, that's not, it's not
Yeah.
relevant. It's not anything that I need. And two, it serves the opportunity for a participation at the team or the organization level so that
Yeah.
they can make sure that those competencies are both quantitative and qualitative for the leader.
Right.
Because I have leaders, they do the 360, let's say today, and then a year later we come back and do it again.
Yeah.
Got to see if there's growth there.
That's amazing. I mean, I say amazing too much on my podcast. I realized that the last one I did, like, I was like, amazing, amazing. So, and I'm saying it again. That makes total sense. What leader wouldn't want to know what the peers or colleagues
It's a
are
lot of
thinking?
leaders.
I'm sure they don't actually want to know, I would assume, but it would be
Chad,
amazing to change the way you're doing things to improve your
exactly.
life.
Right? To
It's
function better in your life, to
right.
improve your life, function better in your role. Again, most people are able to attain and secure the position. It's how you function in that position that becomes the challenge. And if you're unfulfilled or unhappy or you're struggling in it and you don't even know why, then you're just going to take those behaviors wherever you go.
Yeah.
So it really does, provide you deep insights. But Chad, trust me, I've had leaders. I literally just had one maybe a couple of months ago, sat down with them. And I mean, when I tell you, he is a leader in his organization, a very, high ranking position. And he didn't ask me to come in. His CEO asked me to come in and talk to him and just see if he would be open to it. And when I sat down with him, I was like, are you excited about, the possibilities of the 360? He looked straight at me and he was like, no. And he said to me, he was like, is there any way I can like trip this thing up? Is there anything I can do to like maybe like fudge it a little bit? And I was like, no. So, like you're participating it only at the self level, right? So you're not going to be able to like trip it up by going out and talking to the whole organization and telling them only give me good ratings. I said, you could do that. I said, but I doubt if that's going to land with, everybody in the organization. And I said, why would you want to do that? And he was like, because I don't want the feedback. I don't want to know. So
didn't want to know. Yeah.
It happens.
It could be considered, hurtful, right, to them, or just obviously comfortable. You talked about this. It's discomforting, right? Knowing that everyone's giving a response back to you the way you're not looking at yourself from the outside.
Especially if your perception of yourself is deeply skewed. Yeah. Because most of us walking around, we see ourselves as good. Mm-hmm. We never consider that you can be good and still have harmful behaviors. We never consider that you can be good and still have behaviors that are impactful and hurtful to your organization. We don't consider that good does not equate to effectiveness, efficiency. It doesn't equate to, consistency at the leadership level. That's not what good equates to. No, but if you have this perception that, no, I'm a good leader, I'm an effective leader, and you get the opposite in the feedback, it can be hurtful.
Yeah. I got, I don't even have like that many employees or anything, but I'd be like really nervous to get a bunch of them back. That's for sure.
Well,
it'd be great
here's
to
the
hear.
Thing.
I know.
Chad, it doesn't have to be just with your employees. It can be with anybody you engage or encounter within in your business work, right?
Like you said earlier, right? Anybody.
Right. It could be stakeholders. It could be vendors. You can have a whole other category for your family. Yeah. You can have a whole other category for, your business partners, your peers in the industry. You can categorize it however you want, send it out to however many people you want. And when you get those results back, it is
time to get to work.
Yeah.
Time to get to work.
It's time to get to work.
I love it. Mary, this is amazing. As I said it again, it's just one of those things where every company should have a coach. It sounds like it's one of the really important things, and especially with public agencies, private organizations, in general, everybody needs to have that 360, review.
Especially if they're not blessed enough like you, Chad, to have someone immediately at your immediate beck and call to say, oh, let me give you some feedback on that. I mean, you got your built-in coach, right? So that's beautiful that you have that. But most people don't have the luxury or the means by way of their own awareness or just, through their organizations to say, man, I could really benefit from a coach just for my
Wow.
own personal growth and professional growth, at the least, to serve the role well, the role
It,
that they've been hired into well.
it's
So
amazing.
it's
Yeah.
a great benefit for sure.
Yeah, it is. Ironically, my wife is a coach. You guys are friends. Yeah, I don't think the audience knew that, but now they do. So yes, I have a built-in coach.
Oops.
It's done. Honestly, look, it's changed the way I do business because I was really motion driven. Like this has got to be done now. It's got to be. I'd send emails that are ridiculous blabber to my previous company because I was so frustrated, right? I was just that employee. That was just that guy. And it was so unprofessional now looking back. And I'm just thinking to myself, now I'm
We're
the way
just
I do
gonna thank
business.
God for Christy.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah,
We're gonna thank
exactly.
God for your wife. We're gonna thank God
Exactly.
for your wife. Exactly.
Exactly. So, well, Mary, we're kind of running out of time here. I'm sure we could talk about more things. So how can people get a hold of you and what's the best way, for them to learn more about the 360?
Yeah. So, I mean, our website, heartcenteredmatters.com. Christina Mary, heartcenteredmatters.com. I'll send you the information so that you can share it. And also, hello at MaryReynoldsClark.com. You can reach me there as well.
Like it.
And that's just the word hello and then at MaryReynoldsClark.com. If you reach me there, you're going to be able to reach me through Heart Centered Matters. If you reach me there, you're going to be able to reach me through my own private coaching as well, practice. But yeah, I mean, and
Or they can
if you
just
reach out
contact
to
me and I'll
Chad,
get a hold of you.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you reach out to Tad, you'll be able to reach me in probably even more ways than that. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm available, I'm accessible, and I love, love, love. I cannot stress enough when I say I love what I do. It does not, I never call it work because it never feels like work. It was poured into me and I love pouring into others. I love the work that I do. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for what you do, Mary. You change lives for the better.
Yes, I
And you
do.
make a huge difference in the way companies and public entities are running. And I look forward to you and I sitting down and have another podcast on different topics. I have some
Absolutely.
ideas, but yeah, we could do some roundtables maybe and some other
Yeah.
conversations. But thank
Do
you for
some
joining
fish
me.
bowls and some hot topics. I love that kind of stuff. And
Oh
just
yeah,
kind of like, be in that hot seat of, oh, what question is coming up next? And am I going to be able to meet this challenge of not only answering, but responding in a way that feels aligned with me and the
yeah,
question itself? I love it. So
that's good
absolutely.
stuff. Yeah,
Chad, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you for the questions. I see why you get the response and the claps that you do because you do an effective job at just asking like really in-depth questions. I really appreciate that. Thank you
thanks,
so
Mary.
much. Thank
Appreciate it. Well, you
you.
have a great
Invite me
day.
back anytime.
Thank you, and I'm sure I will. We're definitely going to need coaching, so we're good.
Yes,
We got a coach. That's good. We'll bring it into our sessions. That's for sure.
absolutely.
All right,
All
Mary.
right.
Thanks a lot. Bye
Yes,
bye.
take care. All right. Bye-bye.